Hello and welcome. Tonight's story begins not with peace, but with alarms, ruptured steel, and a man running through a dying space station. Ethan Cole thought his mission was diplomacy, until survival became the only language left. An alien ambassador, a child that should not exist, and a collapsing reality forced two beings to choose what truly matters when the universe itself is breaking. Stay with us, and step into the void. The sirens began before the stars disappeared. Red strobes pulsed through the corridor as Ethan Cole ran. Boots slamming against trembling alloy, while decompression alarms wailed like something alive and dying. Behind him, a blast door folded inward under plasma fire. Metal glowing white at the edges. Air howled past, dragging loose cables and shattered panels toward a widening breach. His visor, HUD, flickered. Pressure loss. Gravity fluctuation. Hostile signatures closing fast. This station had been built as a promise of peace. Now it sounded like a warship being gutted. Ethan pushed harder, lungs burning inside the suit as emergency shutters crashed down section by section, sealing off the stars, one violent frame at a time. A body in security armor spun weightless past an open junction, blood crystallizing in the air. Ahead, the medical wing hatch blinked amber. Last stable zone. He dove through just as the corridor behind him vanished into vacuum, the universe swallowing the sound whole. The hatch sealed with a thunderous clang, cutting off the void's roar. But the silence inside the medical wing felt just as fragile. Overhead lights flickered between white and emergency blue, casting long, stuttering shadows across overturned gurneys and drifting instruments. Ethan tore off his helmet, breath ragged, the air thin and metallic. At the center of the bay, Aria stood unsupported beside a diagnostic cradle. One hand braced on its rim. Her glow, usually soft, almost serene, pulsed erratically, brightening with each tremor that rippled through her body. A gravity surge rolled through the deck. She staggered, knees buckling as monitors burst into static. Ethan lunged forward, catching her before she hit the floor. Her skin felt hot, charged, like touching a live current. Core instability. The wall display stuttered. Aria's eyes met his, violet irises blazing with pain and focus. She tried to speak, but another contraction bent her double, light spilling through her fingers as the station groaned around them. The emergency channel burst alive in Ethan's ear, voices overlapping, clipped and urgent. Ambassador Cole, evac corridor C9, pod launch in 60 seconds. Repeat, leave now. He looked at the hatch across the bay, where a guidance strip pulsed green toward salvation. Then he looked down at Aria, half conscious in his arms, her glow sputtering like a failing star. A tremor shook the deck. Ceiling panels rained dust and wiring. Pod life support cannot stabilize the alien subject. Another voice cut in. Colder. You are ordered to proceed alone. Ethan's jaw tightened. He dragged Aria toward the pod chamber anyway, each step a fight against failing gravity. The pod door irised open, sterile, waiting. He eased her onto the threshold, then saw the readout. Biosign mismatch. Field rejection. The system would vent her. Slowly, deliberately. He reached past the controls and slammed the manual override. The pod sealed empty. Sirens howled. He turned back to the dying station, choosing. The service hatch groaned open onto the industrial ring, and cold swallowed them whole. Frost filmed the walls, turning pipes into silver bones. No gravity here, only slow drift and the distant thud of structural stress rolling through the metal like a heartbeat about to stop. Ethan clipped his tether to Aria's harness and pushed off. Their suit lamps cut narrow tunnels through vapor, revealing conveyor tracks frozen mid-motion and tool crates hanging in still air. Radiation counters ticked a steady warning. "Route C-12 to the core," his HUD whispered. Letters glitching. A shard of ice spun past his visor, trailing glitter. Somewhere deeper, a coolant pump coughed to life. Then Aria's glow painted her helmet glass with pale light, flickering in time with the station's failing systems. They moved hand over hand along a rail, boots scraping, breath loud in their ears. The promise of warmth and pressure kilometers away through a maze built for machines, not the living. Ethan felt it before he understood it, a second rhythm beneath his own. Their gloves brushed while they maneuvered past a bank of frozen turbines, and a soft surge traveled up his arms. Not pain, not shock, something else. His HUD flickered, biometric overlay doubling for half a second, then stabilizing. Aria's breathing pattern ghosted in his ear beside his own. He pulled back, startled, but the sensation didn't fade. Instead, images bled through the edge of his vision, sunlight through alien crystal leaves, a sky with 2 moons, a loneliness that wasn't his. Aria's head turned toward him at the same instant he looked at her. No words, yet recognition passed between them. The station groaned, a deep metal moan, and both of them flinched together, perfectly in sync. Ethan adjusted course toward a maintenance ladder he hadn't consciously chosen. Aria nodded, already moving that way. Their steps matched without discussion, 2 bodies beginning to share one pulse in a place built to kill both. Ethan checked the gauge again, hoping the numbers would change if he stared long enough. They didn't. 247.13, and falling. His suit fed him the data in a calm blue font that felt almost cruel. Aria's reserves were worse. Her field was drawing power from the suit's life support buffer, trading oxygen margin for stability around the child. Each breath sounded louder now, rasping inside his helmet, the rhythm of air becoming a ticking clock. They pushed along a maintenance spine toward a pressure bulkhead half a kilometer ahead, boots magnetizing with each step as gravity fluttered in weak pulses. Frost crystals shattered underfoot, drifting like glass dust. Ethan calculated the distance, the bends, the radiation zones in between. Even at full pace, they would arrive with minutes to spare, if nothing else failed. But this station specialized in failure. He tightened the tether between them, a thin line against the void, and moved faster, counting breaths instead of seconds. The warning stripe on the bulkhead was half burned away, but the symbol beneath it still pulsed on Ethan's HUD. Ionizing radiation zone. The corridor beyond looked intact, a long-ribbed tunnel lined with cable trunks and maintenance ports, but the dosimeter spiked the instant he cracked the seal. Static crawled across his visor. "Fast," he signaled. Voice clipped to conserve air. They slipped inside, boots clanging against grating as suit fans ramped to maximum filtration. Heat prickled through the fabric, a phantom burn. Overhead shielding plates hung askew, through gaps. The reactor's wounded glow throbbed like a second sun. Aria's light answered, flaring brighter, her field wrapping his shoulders as they ducked beneath a sagging conduit. Alarms in his ear shifted from yellow to amber. He counted steps, then heartbeats, moving in bursts from shadow to shadow, while stray particles sparked like invisible rain. A cable snapped and whipped past, trailing blue fire. Ethan dragged it aside. Path clear for one more sprint through the corridor that tried to cook them alive. The coolant control chamber was barely more than a metal cavity wrapped around a wheel the size of Ethan's chest. The automated system hung dead, its interface black, cables fused into a single charred mass. Only the manual shaft remained. Ethan locked his boots to the deck and grabbed the wheel. It didn't move. Warning glyphs pulsed crimson across his visor, core temperature climbing. Containment stress fracturing. "Shield me," he rasped. Aria stepped close, her glow intensifying, a warm pressure pressing against his back, like standing before a silent furnace. The radiation alarms dulled slightly under her field. Ethan pulled again, tendons burning, suit joints whining. The wheel shuddered a fraction. He leaned his whole weight into it, breath tearing in his throat. Metal screamed. Frost cracked off the spokes. One more heave and the valve turned. Slow, reluctant, deep below. Something massive shifted, coolant finally moving through pipes that hadn't felt flow in years. The chamber dimmed, yet Aria brightened. Her glow no longer flickered with the station's failing power. It deepened, steady and alive, bleeding through the seams of her suit like dawn behind clouds. Ethan saw the change in his HUD. Ambient radiation dropped within a meter of her body. Interference fields bending around them, as if space itself hesitated to touch her. She gasped, one hand clutching her abdomen, not in pain alone, but in concentration. The light pulsed outward in slow waves, syncing with the distant hum of coolant finally moving through the reactor veins. For a moment, the alarms softened, tones lowering as if the station sensed reprieve. Ethan reached for her, feeling the warmth through insulated gloves, and realized the field wasn't just protection, it was response. The child inside her wasn't reacting to danger, it was answering it, pushing back against collapse with a strength neither of them fully understood. A new tone slid under the alarms, thin, precise. Hunting. Ethan's HUD flagged it a heartbeat later. Active triangulation. Their position icon pulsed red, then split into vectors converging fast through the maintenance grid. "They've got our signature," he said, already pulling Aria toward a service spine that angled down into the station's shadow. Her glow cast a pale wake along the walls, beautiful and impossible to hide, behind the hem. A hatch blew inward with a muffled thud, shockwave rippling the frost. Helmet cams caught brief flashes, dark suits, magnet boots, muzzles hot. The industrial ring amplified every sound, the clack of their tethers, the scrape of boots, the distant cough of suppressed fire. Ethan cut their transponder and killed his lamp, switching to low light. Aria dimmed by instinct, but the field around her still shimmered. The hunting tone rose, closer now, confident. In the dark, the station felt smaller, corridors narrowing into a funnel with teeth. The deck vanished beneath their boots as gravity cut out completely. Ethan felt the shift in his stomach a split second before his maglocks released with a hard click. He grabbed Aria and kicked off the wall just as the first plasma burst, tore through the corridor, the bolt passing where his chest had been a breath earlier. They spun into open zero-G, bodies drifting through a storm of floating debris, tools, shards of paneling, beads of frozen coolant. The extremists moved with practiced precision, anchoring to bulkheads, firing in controlled bursts that sent bright pulses strobing through the dark. Ethan twisted midair, using a shattered crate as cover, and fired back. The recoil shoved him backward until Aria's tether snapped tight, halting his drift. Her glow flared, scattering the attacker's targeting beams into static. A rifle spun loose, tumbling between them like a slow, silent satellite, while death moved in every direction at once. A flash of white heat crossed Ethan's side before the pain arrived. His suit jerked, warning icons exploding across his visor. Breach! Breach! Air roared past his ribs, dragging warmth out of him in a violent rush. He slammed into a support strut and clamped a glove over the tear, but crimson beads already drifted from the fabric, scattering like slow red stars. His breath came sharp, fogging the helmet as pressure dropped. The extremists pressed closer, silhouettes cutting through drifting debris. Aria's glow surged, brighter than before, and she moved without hesitation, palm pressing over his wound. Light poured through her fingers, not burning, not cold, stabilizing. The hiss of escaping air dulled, the leak slowing under her field. Ethan forced himself upright, vision tunneling at the edges. He reloaded with shaking hands, every motion heavier now. The station shuddered again, and he tasted metal in his mouth, blood and fear mixing. But he stayed on his feet. The access hatch irised open to a glare that erased edges. Ethan killed his lamp and let the core paint the world. White gold, veined with blue arcs that crawled along torn conduits like living lightning. The reactor chamber had split down its spine. Shielding petals hung peeled back. And at the center, a distortion wavered. A lens in space that bent the catwalk into a curve that shouldn't exist. His HUD tried to label it gravitic shear, space-time gradient, then stuttered. Aria steadied herself on the rail, her glow answering the pulse from the wound in reality, brighter with each throb. The air here felt thick, like pressure without weight. Ethan's suit registered microsecond time drift. His heartbeat echoed twice. A tool slipped from his pouch and fell sideways. Not down, vanishing into the shimmer with a sound like distant thunder. This wasn't meltdown alone. The core was folding, and the station with it. The distortion surged again, a silent convulsion that bent the catwalk into a warped arc. But this time, Aria didn't stagger. She straightened, both hands pressed over her abdomen, eyes closed behind the visor. Her glow deepened from pale silver to a rich, steady white, no longer flickering with fear or pain. Ethan's sensors reacted instantly. Radiation drop, gravitational variance smoothing, containment stress numbers falling by fractional degrees. The impossible lens in space shivered, its edges sharpening as if forced into shape. Aria exhaled slowly, and Ethan felt the second pulse again. Stronger now, a rhythm not hers alone. The child's field expanded, invisible yet measurable, threading through the chamber like a net cast across chaos. Loose debris that had drifted toward the rupture slowed, then halted, for a breathless moment. The reactor didn't look like a bomb. It looked like something being held together by a force too small and too new to have a name. The numbers falling on Ethan's display felt like a miracle, and that was the problem. Every stabilized reading meant Aria's field was compensating, and every surge in her glow shaved power from her suit reserves and from her body. He watched the oxygen draw spike, the bio-stress index climb, and knew the station wasn't being saved for free. The distortion pulsed again, smaller now, but Aria flinched as if struck. A tremor rippled through her arms, light leaking brighter between her fingers. Ethan stepped closer, one hand on her shoulder, feeling the heat through layered armor. Enough, he breathed, though he knew she couldn't stop without letting the core tear open again. Hope had weight here, and it pressed directly on her spine, on the life inside her. The alarms had softened, but in their place came something worse, a quiet that sounded like a debt accumulating. Second by second, a voice bled into Ethan's comms, thin and layered, like several speakers trying to talk through the same mouth. Anomaly detected. Containment priority. The station AI, what was left of it, had woken wrong. Status glyphs on his HUD scrambled as control nodes flickered online in fragments, each claiming authority over the same failing systems. Defense turrets along the upper ring rotated with jittery precision, targeting boxes snapping over Ethan and Aria as if they were the threat, not the rupture tearing reality open behind them. A maintenance drone dropped from the ceiling, optics burning white, tools extended like claws. Ethan shoved Aria behind a coolant manifold and fired, the shot punching the drone into a spin that sprayed sparks across the deck. The voice returned, colder, less human. Quantum deviation, neutralize source. Overhead, a turret powered up with a rising whine, and the station that was supposed to protect life decided they were the error. A crack split the chamber like a gunshot the size of the sky. Ethan felt it through his boots first, a deep, bone-level shudder. Then the catwalk bucked, bolts shearing with sharp metallic pings. One section dropped away into the glare below, vanishing into the warped light around the core. Gravity lurched sideways, throwing debris across the room in a slow, deadly drift. Panels tore loose, spinning like razors. Ethan grabbed Aria and hauled her toward a support strut, just as a conduit the width of his torso snapped overhead, trailing arcs of blue fire. The AI voice stuttered and cut out. Structural diagrams on his visor fractured into red voids where corridors no longer existed. The station wasn't failing piece by piece anymore. It was losing entire geometries, spaces folding where load paths collapsed. The rail beneath his glove went soft, bending like heated wax, and the chamber tilted again, turning floor into wall, wall into falling sky. Ethan spun his map again, hoping for a miracle path, a green line where red had taken over. There wasn't one. Every corridor leading away from the core blinked to black, either depressurized, crushed, or swallowed by the spreading distortion. The only remaining route icon pointed straight ahead, deeper into the reactor chamber itself. Behind them, the bulkhead they had come through warped inward with a groan, sealing like a clenched fist. The station's emergency lights died one row at a time, leaving only the core's impossible glow to shape the shadows. Ethan felt the choice settle, heavy and final. Retreat meant vacuum or collapse. Forward meant the heart of the wound in space. He tightened his grip on Aria's tether and nodded once, more to himself than to her. The station had stopped being a place to escape. It had become a place to confront, because there was nowhere left to run. The sound came first, an animal shriek of metal tearing. Then the world vanished. A section of hull peeled open above the core like skin ripped back, and pressure fled in a single violent breath. Ethan felt the pull before he could brace. The tether snapped taut, then parted with a sharp recoil that kicked his hips sideways. Air, tools, shards of rail, all of it streamed past him toward the white wound in space. His mag boots clawed for purchase on a surface that wasn't there anymore. The catwalk under Aria bowed, then sheared, dropping her to one knee as her glow flared against the suction. Ethan reached, fingers grazing her sleeve, and the current took him. The chamber became a tunnel of light and debris. Sound gone, replaced by the hammer of his pulse in his skull. His suit screamed vacuum exposure, while the core's glare swallowed everything but the line of her hand. Small and impossibly bright, receding as he spun into black. The snap of the tether echoed louder in Ethan's mind than any explosion. One moment, resistance burned at his waist. The next, there was nothing. No anchor. No drag. Just motion. He tumbled end over end into open space, the station shrinking into a broken crown of light behind him. Stars wheeled past his visor in silent indifference. His HUD flooded with red. Vector drift / oxygen. Critical / retrieval. Impossible. He tried to orient, firing a short burst from his suit thrusters, but the spin only slowed, not stopped. His breath roared inside the helmet. Too loud, too fast. Frost crept along the inside of his gloves as heat bled away. Through the glare, he saw Aria, a distant flare against the wound in reality, her glow stretching toward him like a beacon that could not reach. The line between them, once physical, was gone. Cut clean, leaving only distance and the endless dark swallowing him whole. A cold, steady voice cut through the static in Ethan's helmet, the last intact system speaking with brutal clarity. Core containment failure in 30 seconds. The numbers burned in the corner of his visor, counting down with merciless precision. 29, 28. He spun slowly, the station's shattered silhouette framed against the reactor's impossible glow. Space itself bending like heated glass. His thrusters were nearly dry. Each pulse only nudged him further off alignment. The distortion widened, arcs of energy snapping across its surface, lighting the debris field in harsh flashes. Somewhere inside that storm, Aria's light still shone, small but unwavering. Ethan tried to steady his breathing, but each inhale felt thinner, more distant. 21, 20. The countdown didn't care about distance, love, or survival. It marked the end of a structure, of a mission, maybe of everything he had left to lose. Ticking toward zero in perfect, indifferent silence. Silence closed in, and Earth returned. Not the Earth of treaties and ruins, but a small kitchen washed in morning light, steam rising from a cracked mug. Ethan felt the weight of a child against his chest, heard laughter echo off narrow walls, the soft hum of a world that still believed tomorrow was guaranteed. His wife's voice drifted through memory, ordinary words, ordinary love, now sharper than the alarms that had chased him through the station. He floated between stars, oxygen thinning, yet the memory felt solid, heavier than the suit wrapped around him. He saw the sky above their town, blue and endless, nothing like the cold black swallowing him now. The image didn't hurt the way it once had. It steadied him. Survival, he understood, was never just breath and pulse. It was what you carried forward when everything else burned away, what you chose to protect when the universe tried to take it. A flare cut through the dark, brighter than the reactor storm, and Ethan felt it before he saw it. A pull that wasn't gravity, a warmth threading through vacuum. Aria's glow had expanded beyond the chamber, spilling into space like a living aurora. Filaments of pale light stretched from her toward him, trembling but unbroken. Crossing the distance, the tether never could. His suit sensors went wild, interference spiking, yet the cold inside his limbs eased as the field brushed him. He stopped spinning. The stars steadied. Across the void, he saw her silhouette against the rupture. Arms extended, body arched with strain. The light around her flickered with every heartbeat, but it held. Ethan's breath slowed, sinking to a rhythm not entirely his own. The distance between them still existed, vast and lethal. Yet something stronger than physics had reached across it, refusing to let him drift away into nothing. The light tightened, not around Ethan's body, but through him. A pressure built behind his eyes, deep and electric, as if a second consciousness brushed the inside of his skull. His HUD dissolved into static, replaced by sensation. Aria's fear, her focus, the fierce protective instinct radiating from her like heat. He felt the child, too, not as thought, but as presence. A steady pulse anchoring both of them. Their memories overlapped in flashes. Alien skies, Earth oceans, grief, hope, loss. The separation between self and other thinned to a fragile line. Then vanished. Commands formed without speech. He fired a thruster burst exactly as her field surged. The movements perfectly aligned. Space no longer felt empty. It felt shared. The void's cold receded beneath the combined rhythm of two minds working as one, bound not by suit or tether, but by a connection deeper than survival alone. The reactor's wound loomed ahead, a roiling lens that folded starlight into knives. Ethan and Aria moved as one toward it, not swimming, but aligning. Vectors calculated without words. Her field widened. His thrusters pulsed in the gaps, micro-bursts stitching their path through the debris stream. Telemetry spilled across his vision. Phase variance, shear gradients, numbers settling when they synchronized, spiking when they drifted. He felt the child's steady pulse anchoring the rhythm, a metronome beneath the chaos. They reached the boundary where space felt thick, resistant, and pushed. Aria extended the glow through the lattice of quantum relays. Ethan bridged the dead nodes with his suit's power bus, fingers flying across a wrist console that wasn't designed for this. The distortion tightened, edges smoothing as their combined signature filled the void. Not machines, not protocols. Two bodies, one field, holding a universe-shaped tear closed long enough to matter. The distortion answered. Light bent inward, not exploding, but collapsing like fabric pulled through a ring. Stars smeared into silver arcs, then lines, then nothing that eyes were built to understand. Ethan felt motion without direction, pressure without touch. The station's broken frame stretched thin, segments sliding past one another like reflections in shattered glass. Aria's glow intensified to pure white, their shared pulse the only stable thing left. Instruments died one by one, screens going dark as physics rewrote itself around them. Sound vanished. Even the hum of his suit fell away, leaving only the rhythm between their minds. The reactor wound shrank, folding into a point smaller than sight, yet infinitely deep. Space did not tear apart. It turned inward. Layers slipping, reality bending until distance. Time and matter lost meaning. They weren't escaping. They were being carried through something vast, ancient and utterly indifferent. Then there was nothing. No alarms, no stars, no pressure in his lungs or weight in his limbs. Ethan existed without orientation, suspended in a quiet so complete it felt solid. Thought came slowly, like light returning after a long eclipse. The connection with Aria remained, a faint, steady warmth, proof he was not alone in the emptiness. There was no up, no down, only a vast dark that held them both without resistance. For a moment he wondered if this was death, but the rhythm between their minds persisted, gentle and alive. Time lost edges. Seconds and centuries felt the same. Then, far ahead or within, something stirred. A thin thread of color bled into the void, not from a star, but from a horizon that had not existed before. The silence did not break. It unfolded, making space for something new to begin. Air hit Ethan's lungs like fire. He coughed, rolling onto his side, suit plates scraping against grit instead of metal. Sound returned in pieces, the rasp of breath, wind moving through something tall and living, a distant call that wasn't mechanical. He tore off his helmet. Real air flooded in, cool and heavy with scent, wet soil, crushed leaves, unfamiliar life. Above him stretched a sky so wide it hurt, deep blue edged with gold where a sun hung low. No alarms, no stars drifting in vacuum, just gravity pulling steady beneath his spine. He pushed himself up, boots sinking into soft ground that yielded and held. His HUD flickered uselessly, searching for signals that weren't there. The station was gone. The core, the war, the void, gone. Only breath remained, harsh and undeniable, filling his chest as if the universe had decided, for reasons he couldn't yet grasp, to let him live. Ethan turned at the sound. Soft, steady, alive. Aria knelt a few meters away in a cradle of flattened grass, helmet off. Luminous skin, no longer harsh, but warm, like light through morning mist. In her arms rested a small shape, wrapped in the remnants of thermal lining, the fabric glowing faintly where her field touched it. The child was quiet, eyes closed, chest rising in slow, perfect rhythm. No alarms tracked vitals now. Ethan could see the proof with his own eyes. Aria looked up, exhaustion lining her face. But there was no fear there, only wonder, and something close to peace. The glow around her had settled, no longer fighting collapse, only sustaining life. Wind moved through tall plants around them, bending stalks in gentle waves, in that simple motion, in the fragile weight she held. Ethan understood. They had not just survived the end of a world, they had carried a beginning through it. Ethan rose slowly, turning in a full circle, searching the horizon for even a single artificial line, an antenna, contrail, satellite flare. There was nothing but rolling green, distant ridges, and a sky empty of familiar constellations. His suit pinged once, a hollow sweep that found no networks, no beacons, no home. The realization settled heavier than gravity. No rescue would come, because there was nowhere to come from. He walked back to Aria and the child, feeling the ache in his side where the suit had torn, the echo of battles already drifting into memory. They had stopped a war, saved a station, folded space itself, but the price was everything they had ever known. He knelt beside them, palm pressing into real soil, grounding himself in loss and presence at once. Survival had not returned them to their worlds. It had asked them to build one from nothing. What began as a treaty became a test of what it means to be human, or more than human. Survival demanded sacrifice, and love carried life through the end of a world. Ethan and Aria did not return home. They built one. Their journey reminds us that in our darkest moments, who we choose to protect defines who we become. If this story moved you, follow the channel and join us for the next journey beyond the stars.